Hey everyone, it's spooky season, so let's make some spooky soaps. Today I'm working on a soap that I've been planning for a while. I got these really cool molds on Amazon. I will try to put the link in the description box. I will, it just may not be there right away, but it will be there eventually. And I knew they'd be tricky to work with, so I am going to show you my favorite tip slash technique slash trick to get tricky, intricate embeds out of successfully out of the mold. For those of you who've seen that before, please watch anyway because it is the whole soap is a lot more than that, and I just touch on it a little bit as you see me messing it up and remembering, oh yeah, use your trick, silly. Um, and then go back and do it again. So you get to see the difference, but I don't spend a lot of time on showing the difficulty I had. So there's not a lot of that. I sped it up a lot and cut out most of it. So just a little bit of a hint of showing the struggle. Anyway, the basic soap is kind of a design I've been modifying, not really modifying, I guess, just creating many versions of since last year. And I still love it. And I'll probably make more. In fact, I already have made more. I've got next week's video is filmed already. The soap is filmed and it's a similar style, but it looks completely different. That's one of the reasons I like this technique. It just gives you a cool background to do whatever you want on the top of. So, um, this one is uh, basically it's an abstract spooky forest. That's all it is. There's no ghosts. There's nothing but man, I think it looks really cool. Um, One of my followers said something about it looking a little bit like reminding them of a Tim Burton set or something, which I thought was kind of cool because I love Tim Burton style stuff. He's really neat. It's definitely an abstract look at a spooky forest. I'm calling it, well, you may have seen that on the thumbnail. I'm going to call at least the video is going to be a once upon a spooky walk. I know, kind of silly and cheesy, but hey, that's me. See, ta-da! I had to show off that I spilled but didn't spill because I obviously knocked over my cup and it didn't spill. So I was thrilled and very proud of myself. Actually, it was more like, look what a mess I made. And then I realized I didn't make a mess. So, anyway, if you don't know me, I do make a lot of messes. I do spill things a lot. That is just part of who I am. And hopefully by now, you've learned to accept that. If not, I'm very sorry. It's not going to change. Um, I'm mixing in these little cups. These cups are 3.4 ounces, or I believe 100 grams. They're little silicone cups. You'll see me use these a lot. Um, Most of the way I use them, like I'm using right now, and that is to put the mica in first and then to uh, wet that down with a little bit of rubbing alcohol or disperse it in the rubbing alcohol. Makes it so much easier. I did go real heavy on the mica in these. You don't have to. That's just the way I do it. Um, it was about a half a teaspoon for each one of these, which is a lot for 3 ounces, 3.4 ounces. Pretty much filled it to the top. Um, but it's basically creating a background for my background, a background for the bottom of the soap. I'm creating, and while that first layer is drying, I'm stepping into the embeds here. If you don't have some kind of little pastry cutter like this, or soap scraper, or something scraper, I'm sure you can find one. I got mine actually a soap cutter that does not have the ridges will work just fine as well. Um, I'm sure you could find a variety of things that would work. Even an old credit card that is not in use might do it. You're looking for something thin and solid. So, have fun finding a variety of things you could use. List them in the comments. Tell me what else you could use. Um, but you do want to I started to mess that up. You want to spray an intricate mold with alcohol right before you pour. It is night and day difference how that soap moves. Alcohol makes liquid soap move. And there's so many different ways we use that, but it definitely um, can get it into those little crevices of molds like this much faster and easier with much less problem with bubbles and parts of it not being filled in, etc. So that is my recommendation for you using intricate molds. That's not my trick though. My trick, I'll have to show you me messing it up first, but you do notice I'm kind of scraping away the part that didn't scrape easily with the scraper. So it's going to leave a little bit of residue and that's fine. So I just took a knife and just you just very lightly have to scratch it off. And then I did come back. Well, no, I didn't yet. I took a break, let those dry or set up, and now I'm doing the second layer because it was mostly set up here. Um, this is this is my marbling technique, and you might find out if you watch a few of my marbling videos that it is much easier to swirl melt and pour soap when you're doing it in very small increments, in small layers, thin layers. That first layer was probably a quarter inch thick at the most. I don't even think it was that thick. I think it was maybe somewhere between an eighth of an inch and a quarter, maybe. Anyway, maybe it was a quarter inch, but not more than that. And then when that sets up for the most part, a nice thick skin on it, then I go to the next layer of it. And I start with the clear because I still want what's underneath to show. It's a layered marble effect. And if you look at marble, many times you can see through, not layers, but you can see the swirls and the veins and the variety of inclusions within the marble, pretty far down in. It gives it a little bit of depth. So that's why I like to start with a layer of clear, then add. I love the way this color looks, although I think I added it a little too hot. It spread out more than I wanted to. Um, by the time it dried, it was perfect here, like where I ended it. It was just perfect. And then it did spread a little bit, but it didn't ruin it at all. All it made me do is come back and add a darker layer, which I was planning to do anyway, just to kind of give it some shadows. Again, going for kind of a spooky feel, I felt this was a little too bright. And that's why I added the shadows. When I added the shadows, what I was adding, I first add a little more twilight, I believe, unless I already did that twilight blue. But then I go back and I add a little space walk, which is a black mica with gold flecks in it, gold soap safe glitter. Anyway, um, as you can see, I'm already struggling on the screen there with these embeds. I have done embeds like that successfully and pulled them out. However, if you're adding a lot of glycerin, you're going to have it stays a little softer, a little bit more malleable. And unless you have like a full day to wait for it to set up more, it's going to be difficult to pull out. And even then, it's still going to be difficult. So take my tip, please, and use it and enjoy it. You'll see me struggling a minute here or so before it comes up, but it is night and day. It is so much easier to do it this way. And I know when you first do it, you're not going to trust that the clear doesn't show. And you'll see what I mean with when I'm talking about the clear. I take a very thin layer of clear and I pour it over these tricky embeds like this. And what that does, you do have to pour it a little bit on the hot side. You don't want to pour it too hot because you don't want to remelt the black and have it come into the clear. You want the clear to remain clear. But If you pour it on and spread it, it's going to cool fairly quickly as you're spreading it, and because it's a very, like I said, a very thin layer. I spread it carefully with one of those little sticks. You can probably use one of your spatulas, one of your rubber or silicone spatulas to spread it too. Variety of things. I don't use my pastry spreader because that's going to make it a little too thin. And here's where I'm still struggling on and realizing that I probably should have done my trick. Why did I forget? It was a new mold. I was excited to use it, and I guess I just didn't think it through. Um, but uh, you see why I do it. You'll see the difference because it is. I mean, it's distorted. I probably could have used that one. It would have been a little bit more of more abstract. And I did want the circle to remain like a circle. Um, to me, that's kind of an image of, even though it doesn't look like the moon, it's kind of gives you an impression of a great big full moon in the sky, or it ends up in the corners. But that's the way I like to see it. Anyway, it's it was a little too abstract for me with that. With it, me struggling to pull it out. I'm surprised I pulled it out that well, honestly. But those end up getting rebatched into just another black soap because it is still good, viable soap. It's just didn't work as well for the embed as I thought it would. Um, so here, I guess, is where I come back in with the twilight and add a little bit of the spacewalk, and all I'm doing with that is darkening it a little bit. You could add a little bit of activated charcoal. You could add any black mica you like. I just wanted to, like I say, kind of create the shadows. Yep, there it is. So that was twilight blue mica with spacewalk, just a touch, and it's quite effective at kind of giving it a little bit of a darker feel, as you see. And anytime you're doing the marbling technique, I also, while I use clear soap to move the liquid soap, that's how I move the colors. I pour clear and then put in just a little bit, as you saw, kind of stream it across, little bit of a colored soap, and then I pour more clear to move it, and that's what gives it the marbled look. But you also notice I pulled out my handy dandy little stick there, and you could use whatever type of thing you like to do to mix your soap or stir your soap. Um, I like those little sticks because they're just quite handy, and that gives you a little bit more control. I still like using the soap because I like a little less control at times. I like it to look more organic. So here you see me pouring a second layer of that black, and it is activated charcoal for these. Um, and doing the spread again. And then you'll see me come back in and see the trick, the tip. Um, I have other videos that focus on this technique a little bit more. With this one, I was more focusing, I guess, on the swirl or the marbling. I really wanted to utilize that look again. I did a few, no, not a few years ago. Last year, I did an orange and green swirl or marble effect and put um, spiders all over it. And that was my arachnophobia soap. If you have not had a chance to see that, I am going to create a Halloween compilation video and I'll string all those together. So if you just need some inspiration or want to check out some of what I've done, I'll probably include some photos of Halloween soaps that I've not done on in a video yet. I have a few of those that I'm going to do, not a few, just a couple, I think, of those that I'm going to redo for video for this year. I'm at least going to try. You can't get away with that many Halloween though. It's a very short little season, and it splits right off into fall real quick. In fact, the other soap I've made that's for this season is a fall soap. Now, although this one isn't necessarily a Halloween soap. It doesn't scream it in your face. It just has a spooky vibe, which is what I was going for, spooky vibes. And I very specifically did not do Halloween colors for that reason. The fragrance, as you may have seen, is sweater weather, which, in my opinion, can go beyond Halloween. It's not a Halloween specific fragrance, in my opinion, just very fall like. But actually, know people who use it all year long. And I've used it all year long, actually. But there you see, I'm spreading that thin layer across the top. It's a little on the hot side. I think I poured it around 135. I'm not positive on that, but I'm spreading it quickly so it doesn't have a chance to melt that soap. I'm not pouring directly on the thickest part of that black soap or the thinnest part, trying to pour it lightly on, gently on, and move it ASAP so that it will help it to adhere better for one thing when it's hot, but it will also at the same time cool that layer quite quickly because it's a thin. You're thinning it out and making it spread. Don't thin it too much. Watch. It was hard for me to see um, where the clear was and wasn't. So I had to get down kind of, and you'll see the first one I unmold there is not perfect because I didn't go, um, part of that mold I didn't get. I got most of it, but it was such a thin layer in the middle on one of those that it just, it was all right. I could have used it. I didn't throw it away, but the second one came out perfect. So I used that one instead. These came out perfect. And as I'm peeling them, hopefully the video's caught up to the audio. Again, I'm still dealing with some internet issues, but the preview came out okay. So hopefully it will stay caught up this time. But that's perfect. It's just perfect. And you can't get, um, without much difficulty and frustration, it's very difficult to get an embed like that without this trick. You might be able to, but anyway, that's what I do. And I would recommend going back and kind of trimming the edges a little bit. I play in the second video I do for my fall hollow not Halloween, fall soap coming up. I also do something similar, and you'll see on one of these I forget to take off the edges, and it's just the ones that stick out, and that's only because they kind of get in the way of the other embeds. So you don't have to trim it. You don't have to trim it perfectly, but just be aware of where it's going in your soap and how it might get in your way. So like long corners that stick off, I should have trimmed those off. The thicker the layer, you don't want to go super thick because then you might see it. If it's a thinner layer, you're not going to see it. I kind of push that boundary in the next soap, and you'll see that again. But this one was a fairly thick layer, and for all three of these that I end up using, or two, I end up using two of them because I cut one of them up. But yeah, see, there's where that one side was just not quite filled in thick enough, so it broke on me and just made it a little more complicated. But I used the other one instead. So it still made a nice circle, but this one just came out easier. So see where it's broken? Now I could easily fix that. Number one, you could fix that just by pouring a little bit of clear melt and pour on the mat and fixing it that way. I have done that. Probably should have done that with this one. I didn't think of it. You don't always think of the right tip at the right time. That's that's part of my problem with this one is if I had thought of doing this first, this would have been a shorter video. But I didn't, and I'd like to show you my mistakes so you can see them and you can see, what the consequences of them are. It's not like there was any horrible consequence; it just took me longer. That one came out absolutely perfect in my opinion. There's a little spot, but it doesn't matter, and it stayed as a circle put together. And I even kind of put one of the branches into the little spot, and it makes it look even cooler because it looks like it's I don't know, growing into that other tree. I don't know. It's such an abstract design anyway. I don't know that any of that matters. Um, I've told you this before. if you have watched me, you've probably heard this a million times. I like making abstract soaps for that very reason. You have more wiggle room. You have a lot of wiggle room to make things not perfect. Art typically isn't perfect. And so I love that. Now, I highly recommend, as you'll see in these, I put the flattest side, which means where I poured the clear soap, I put that clear soap down first. But you also want to be sure to spray that with rubbing alcohol, either the 91% or the 70. I don't think it matters, but you want to spritz it. Spritz that side. Actually, I spritz both sides, but spritz that side as you're going to lay it down into the um, liquid soap, which I do add. I think I add a layer of clear there before I do anything else. I'm too busy kind of trimming these up. I forgot about that. These weird kind of floppy looking ones, I did end up getting those out without using the clear, but they were unruly. they uh they just, they were what they were, and so I used them where I wanted them was for the sides of the soap. As I have said in many, soaps like this, that when I do designs like this, I like to have partial pieces going off to the side because it kind of brings the image out further. You can see that it continues, that it's not just a single, spot in, one tree. You have more trees, and if you take a picture, you're gonna get some of those trees that go off into the forest. And these kind of layers like this that I pour on something that's already set up, I pour it pretty hot. There was a real balance here of pouring hot enough to stick it to the other layer, and that's another reason for spritzing your embed. You're cooling it a little bit and giving it a layer of protection from the hot soap, and then then it also helps prevent bubbles. That's why I sprayed the back. That's what I was trying to say. The back of it you spray, and it's less likely to get bubbles. Also, don't set it down straight. Kind of put it in at a little bit of a curve and then spread it down, and that helps to kind of push the bubbles to the side. That is my recommendation. My next soap that you see, not this one, but the one I use this a similar technique with, I don't put the right side up. And I end up with bubbles and they look really cool. I think it works for the soap I'm doing. Um, but if I'd have thought about it, I would have done the other side, and you get to see the difference next week. See how these floppy things go in there? I put the cut side up against the wall of the mold so that it looks like that branch continues on off sides. And to me, that's part of making a soap like this kind of look organic, instead of I'm putting a fish in a soap in the middle of it right there, and that's all I'm doing. I like the picture to continue. I don't know if that makes any sense to any of you, but it makes sense to me, and that's the way I like to do it. So I hope it makes some sense to you, design sense. That's basically what I'm talking about here, is just the way I design my soaps. So always pour clear back on the top of these. That is what helps those edges to disappear. That's the clear edges of these. That's why you don't have to trim them perfectly, is because you pour clear back on. And if you've put, I did fragrance the clear that I put on the embeds, because you want it to match. So if it turns even a little, you want it to match that. Um, and that's the way they disappear magically. The other one of the other soaps I did this in is called Flurries. If you've not seen that video, it's a great demonstration of this technique. And it's one of my last year's or the year before Christmas soaps. I don't remember. I think the year before. Anyway, here she is. A spooky walk. So, or once upon a spooky walk. I'm not sure what I'm going to call the soap, but probably just a spooky walk. Um, Looks really neat here. Looks like, I don't know, all kinds of weird things, but it looks more like you're in the woods, um, taking a walk, I think, when you cut it up. But The little trimming there was just, some of the clear soap that you're pouring down the edges will sometimes create a little bit of a film, and you just trim it off with a knife. You probably don't even need to do that. You can probably pull it off with your fingers. But I had my knife right there and kind of wanted to just scrape it off and not be in a, I don't know, not take too much time with it. So I'm just measuring and cutting. You cut your soaps however you want. Um, you might not even measure, you might just eyeball it and cut them. I like to measure, so I'm not great at cutting them. That's why I measure, because it helps me to get a better cut. Um, so I'm not after perfection. I just want it to be as good as it can. And I do a pretty good job with these. They're not 100% perfection, but it's a 6-inch by 6-inch mold, and it is a brambleberry mold. I don't think they have this one anymore. I'm not sure. I have a problem with some of the molds like this. All of the slab molds, I don't know about you, but they're really hard to find. And when you find them, they go out of stock really quickly. Um, but I have found them on Brambleberry. I found them at Nature's Garden. I found them on Amazon. Um, I'm not sure where else, but always just keep your eyes out for those. And if you find one on sale, in my opinion, you should grab it. A slab mold is a fabulous way to get to some design elements and some design and techniques that you might not be able to do in another mold. I find the marbling works here. And unless you're doing really a bunch of really, really thin layers, it doesn't well, even if you're doing thin layers, it doesn't work as well in a loaf mold. Even if you're not filling it beyond like an inch, it doesn't have the movement. Um, it's harder to do anyway. Somebody may be really good at it, but I'm not. So I like to do marbling in a slab mold. I like to do the acorn swirl or just a freestyle, kind of like a drop swirl, not really, because that's a cold process soap technique. It doesn't really work the same. Um, I don't know. I keep calling it a freestyle swirl. We'll do some of those later, but those I like to do in a loaf mold. Um, and slab molds to me are for marbling and for creating pictures. Creating, you can do all kinds of things. Landscapes are great in a loaf mold. Um, but just images that you can layer from the bottom up to the top, and you're looking at you're looking down at the design you're creating, so it's a little easier, at least for me, to kind of create that look. You can do something similar to that in a loaf mold. I've done a lot of them that way, uh, but then you only get a few soaps. So, and of course, this is only a few soaps, but it's a smaller slab mold, and you can do the same idea in a much larger slab mold and have it come out about the same. I love the way these come out. Please let me know if you like them. Let me know what you see when you look at those. Does it look like a spooky forest to you? Does it look like just a hot mess? Does it look like I don't know, a bunch of spiders, spider webs or something? I get spooky vibes, and yet I'm real happy that I didn't end up doing Halloween colors for this. Here's a thought. I thought maybe one of you would want to try it because I probably won't have time to. This design would be so cool with a glow in the dark background, or a mixed glow in the dark background, or even like neon color background. I think it'd look really neat with that. This was kind of bright for the turquoise. It came through really nicely, but how cool would it be if it also glowed in the dark? Just my thought. It would come through that. It would come through, and the black obviously wouldn't glow in the dark, but that would be the look. You'd get a not shadow. What's the word? Anyway, the black would be like a silhouette. That's the word. A silhouetted picture, and from behind that it would be glowing. How cool. If I have time, I'll try it, but I probably won't get to. So some of you have to try it then, and you have to tag me and let me know if you did and show me, because fair's fair. I show you my message, you show me yours. Um, I hope you got something from this video, and I hope you got something from this technique. I know I've done some of these techniques before, but I feel like every time I do it, I learn something new. So I'm hoping you can learn something new as well, and maybe, further your skills. That's the whole idea behind my channel, is I'm trying to help you, um, and not just with skills and techniques, but help you to think outside of the box and expand your creativity. um, Art is my favorite thing in the world, and so making art soaps is pretty much my favorite thing. I do other creative things, a lot of them, but I think soap art is my favorite, at least at this time. I love the way these came out. Oh, look at that pretty. I'm hoping that you can see in these pictures the dimension. I don't know if you can. Um, the blue seems to go on forever. The different shades of blue. Anyway, I'm in love with it. And thanks for spending all this time with me and listening to me ramble. And I really hope you create some kind of spooky soap. It's a fun season for me. I love the spooky soaps. And I can't believe it's already September. What about you? Well, make something spooky. Thanks. Bye.